MIAA Monday back this week with Commissioner Mike Racy, and sir, good to have you back on. And it's been a whirlwind couple of weeks for the MIAA and really everybody with spring sports because weather really hasn't cooperated for anybody, and now we're sitting in 90+ degree weather, at least up in St. Joe for the next 4, 5, 6 days now.
Yeah, we've battled through, I hope, the worst of the spring weather, at least from the standpoint of cold and rain. And we've got one more championship to try and get through this week, Chris, and then we'll put the MIAA sports season to bed. But it's been a great spring, and we've had some really competitive championships the last couple of weeks, and I know that's some of the stuff you wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, it's been a real busy last week, and then of course the MIAA championships outdoor track this weekend too. You had tennis still going with the Central region. You had softball MIAA championship, but I guess we'll start with the softball because that one was all pushed back a day and didn't know what the weather was going to do down in Oklahoma for a few days there. But how'd you guys kind of able to, I don't guess is the right word, what the weather was going to do, but kind of be able to luckily get everything in there through the 4-day window that you had to work with at that point?
Yeah, I feel like we owe a lot to our friends at Central Oklahoma, because it seems like we've spent the entire month of April and now the start of May in Edmond running championships with tennis and softball and baseball this week. But we rely heavily, Chris, on these championships that are taking place on campus. We rely really heavy on the host site and the athletic director, the SWA, their trainer, their administrative staff, operations, facilities, and Amber Feldman from our office work closely with them, just really trying to look at weather predictions and reports and what the middle part of the week last week compared to the latter part of the week was going to be. We had Sunday built in already kind of as a weather day when we planned out the schedule last summer. And we decided before everyone got on buses and headed down to Edmond, that we were just going to go ahead and pull the trigger, move everything back a day based on the forecast for not just rain and cold weather, but some very serious thunderstorms, tornado warnings in and around the area. So I think it was a good thing that we did what we did, and then we were able to pick up with the tournament play and had a great championship game yesterday between Washburn and Rogers State, and walk-off home run for Rogers State to win it. And then we find out today that, Rogers State and Central Oklahoma are both going to be hosting NCAA sub-regionals. So, good news on that front. Washburn qualified as an at-large. So just a great championship. And then, good news today as far as how things look for the NCAA postseason.
When you look at how the tournament unfolded, and of course, any tournament you get into, anybody can beat anybody, especially with double elimination and everything too. Just what you take away from this year's softball and what you saw from the teams in the MIAA tournament, because you had Nebraska Kearney kind of surprise some people there just because they're the lower seed. Missouri Western had to kind of fight through the gauntlet on Saturday to try to get a chance at a championship game on Sunday. Just what do you take away from this year's tournament?
Well, I take away that we've got great softball. We've got kind of your usual teams that seem to always be there. Central Oklahoma, Washburn, Missouri Western. We've got a school that's relatively new in the conference with Rogers State, and they've been a top 5 team all year. Washburn's got the player of the year, who I think is a sophomore. Rogers State's got a player that led the country in offense. And you mentioned it. Teams like Emporia State, Nebraska Kearney, stepping up and having a nice a nice tournament in Edmond. So I think the future's bright, but I think to me, it just underscores what we've known for a while, and that's the MIAA is pretty darn good in softball as well. And softball in our region is pretty tough. We've got schools like Augustana and that's won a national championship recently. And, for us to be able to come out of a conference tournament with two teams hosting the sub-regional, that's a big deal. So, I'm hopeful that we can have a nice run through the NCAA, at least one or maybe two of our teams, and see where that takes us. But it was a great year for MIAA women's softball.
And it's been a minute since we've been on here, but MIAA tennis tournament, down there too in the last couple of weeks. Just another good year for MIAA tennis across the board, and teams that moved on in the NCAA tournament too, just throughout that part as well.
Yeah, I like to hope that the fact that we're hosting our MIAA tennis championship, both men and women, in the same facility where NCAA regionals are taking place, that's good preparation for our institutions, and having a chance to move on and make a run at an NCAA championship. And this year we had a great tournament in Edmond. We saw the first Great American Conference team that won the men's title. We had that partnership with the Great American Conference, where the MIAA and the GAC have come together to help save men's tennis in the Midwest. And Ouachita Baptist out of Arkadelphia, Arkansas, won the men's championship, and they had a nice run. And then on the women's side, Central Oklahoma, and they've been a top 3 or top 4 team all year. And they beat Missouri Western in the women's championship. And I think that was the first time that actually the Missouri Western women's tennis team has made the conference championship. So it was a really, really good run for the first year coach at Western. And he's got a nice team, and they made the regionals, had to go back to Edmond and play UCO. And UCO won, and then Washburn won the sub-regional that was held up in South Dakota. And so Washburn and Central Oklahoma both made the Sweet 16, and both are heading to Florida for the NCAA finals. The men's sub-regionals in tennis are going on today and tomorrow, I believe, and we'll see how Northwest and Washburn are able to do on the men's side. But it was a great championship. It's a great, beautiful facility that we have a chance to play in, and now we're sitting back and watching our conference teams have some success in the NCAA tournament.
It seems like we're just kind of buzzing through everything, but a lot going on in spring sports. Now a baseball tournament, it's kind of down to the Final Four in the MIAA tournament baseball as well. Just should be a pretty good week of baseball. Central Missouri obviously back in it once again in the hunt, and we'll see who comes out of the MIAA tournament this week too.
Yeah, and again, a couple of teams that have been here the last few years: Pittsburgh State, University of Central Missouri. But Washburn, it's been a while since the Ichabods were in the Final Four, and Northeastern State they have a great offensive team, and they'll be bringing that to Edmond to showcase in the Final Four. So yeah, the baseball tournament action starts on Thursday, and we'll weather permitting, we'll hopefully wrap up with the championship game or the championship games, depending on how many we need to play on Saturday. But that's all scheduled to happen on Saturday. So that's again another sport, Chris, that we're hopeful that we put a couple of these teams into the NCAA tournament. And last year UCM made a run all the way to the national championship game, finished runner-up at the NCAA Division II baseball championship in Cary, North Carolina. They certainly believe they've got a team that can do that again and make a deep run. I think we've got 3 other schools heading to Edmond this week that think they can play with the Mules, and if they can beat UCM in the conference, they can beat anyone in the country. So a lot of competitive games, I think, that we'll see in Edmond, and then hopefully have a couple of teams prepared to make deep runs in the NCAA tournament.
Between the sports we've covered, softball, tennis, baseball, and of course outdoor track and field finish up the conference this weekend too. When you see the familiar teams that we're kind of accustomed to seeing in whether it's baseball or softball, football, basketball, whatever it may be, from a league perspective, obviously from a coach's perspective, they want to be there every year, but to have the familiar faces that are always there and mix in with some new faces, that kind of maybe help the conference from a big picture standpoint to get new teams in, new identities maybe to the national stage too.
That's part of what I think is, a big part of what the conference office is charged with. And that's, helping to promote the institutions in our conference and the old saying, the rising tide lifts all boats. And we like to think that that's what's happening in the MIAA. Our schools look at what other programs in the MIAA are doing and how they're having success, and they try to mirror that. Whether that's the type of coaches that they're hiring, the type of facilities they play in, the type of student athletes that they're recruiting, and those are the things that help our schools, find a way to that next level. As they're trying to be the best in the conference. So I love that competition among our schools. And, Chris, we, with track and field being completed this weekend, that was the end of all of our so-called MIAA conference champions. We crowned conference champions in 18 different sports. We had 9 different schools that won a conference championship. Wow. 9 out of our 14. And I sent out a tweet today. That's one of the things I really appreciate about the MIAA is we're not just one dominant program or school that wins everything. Mm-hmm. We have schools that compete in almost every championship, and we've got nine that can lay claim to at least one conference championship this year. We have 4 different schools in the fall and the winter that won a national title or finished runner-up. Washburn in volleyball, Northwest in men's basketball, and Nebraska Kearney and UCO and number 1 and number 2 in wrestling.
Right.
So and we've got a few championships to still go to see where we end up on that number. But, those are the statistics that back up exactly what you're talking about, that, the MIAA is a great place where schools that have been successful for a long time, find a way to continue to be competitive. But the schools that haven't been successful, they're trying to get better, and they are being successful in getting better and challenging the top of our conference. And that just makes the top of our conference even stronger when it gets into time for regional and NCAA Elite 8 competition.
I'll get you out of here on this one just because I know it's a really busy time and we've got, quite a few championships still to kind of finish up and everything and take a breather with. And next couple of weeks, we'll kind of wrap up the academic season and everything too. And there's obviously a lot of the NCAA going to be happening this next couple of months too. But what can people look forward to with the MIAA? Because obviously it never stops. Even though the academic year stops, things never stop in college athletics, and looking toward the future too.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that we're going to have to spend time working on this summer and next academic year, Chris, is making sure that the operating policies and our constitution, our bylaws, our structure is set up in a way that the MIAA as a conference, as an organization, can quickly address issues that need to be addressed for our members and our student athletes. And, this is consistent with kind of what we see the NCAA going through, the review of its constitution, its structure, its bylaws. And we need to just make sure that the way we operate and how we do business as a conference, that it's flexible enough and nimble enough that we can make quick decisions. We don't want to operate in kind of this new version of college athletics with an outdated conference model. And so there's going to be a lot of attention this summer, I think, spent on kind of ways that the MIAA can continue to lead, continue to be the premier conference in Division II, and make sure that we have an organization that's able to, quickly address the needs of all member institutions.
Never a boring time in college athletics at this point, is there?
No doubt, no doubt. The other thing I think that's top of mind for me, Chris, is we've got to figure out a way as a conference that we can take better care of each other, just as people. There's so much in the news now about, especially student athletes that are really struggling and having a hard time coping with different issues. And there's probably a variety of issues and reasons that, some of these tragedies are taking place, but it's just not with our young people. It's coaches, it's administrators, it's, people working on our campuses that, it's hard right now. A lot of people are struggling coming out of this pandemic, and we just need to spend time, I think, as a conference, making sure that we're doing things on the mental health front to take care of each other. We love playing sports. We love competing against each other. We certainly believe the things we're doing for student athletes in giving them an opportunity to compete, wearing our university uniforms, is preparing them for life after college, and hopefully giving them all the tools and skills they'll need to be successful. But one thing that we probably haven't spent enough time on as a league is just making sure that the resources that are available in our communities and campuses, that we're doing a good job promoting those to our athletes and staff and coaches. And at the end of the day, championships and trophies and rings and all that doesn't matter if we've got people that are hurting and are lost and can't figure out what to do or where to go. So we're going to spend time trying to address that, Chris, and quickly, because I'm certainly concerned, and I know presidents and athletic directors in my conference are concerned about some of the things that you're reading about and hearing about of what our student athletes are trying to cope with.
No, absolutely. Couldn't have said it. I couldn't have said it better than what you said. We obviously had the couple of tragedies in the last month, and college athletes and everything too. So I'm sure we'll dive into a lot more of that conversation, this summer too, and leading into the next academic year. But MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy, thank you as always.
You bet, Chris. Thank you.